342. I think everyone should have copies, hopefully, of all of our handouts. We have quite a lengthy agenda today. Do we have minutes?
Yes, yes, that you should get copies. Hopefully put it on your desk.
After they are, sure.
Okay.
So first item is the approval of minutes from our last meeting on March 6th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Second item of business, the treasurer's reports. In the handouts, and for those of you that received the email with all the handouts, Ryan included both the February and March versions of the treasurer's report. I know Ryan's not here today, but obviously March would be the more current report. And attached to it also are the schedule of the various tax revenues. If you recall the last meeting, we also asked Ryan to include the home rule sales tax as a separate section, which he's done. The video gaming tax revenues and property tax collections are on here as well.
If I could just, and I thought he was going to include these numbers, and he didn't, because they are available. If you go on the various websites, on my notes, February sales tax posted in April is $99,346.22. Now, it seems a little bit lower, but it's for February, and February only had 28 days, so it's pretty.
9,000?
Yeah. For February, because February is, it only has 28 days
That we collected in April.
that we collect in April. We get the check in April. You're in the wrong, you're state income tax. Okay,
fine.
there, so you can see, okay? So it's actually probably the highest February we've had since 2008, 2009. Okay?
What was the number, Karen?
$99,346.22, it's on the Illinois Department of Revenue website. The home rule sales tax for February paid in April is $53,661.66. Again, slightly less than the other months, but that's because we have less days. If you go to the Illinois Department of Gaming, video gaming for the month was, I think, our highest ever, $12,813. So I just wanted to know, let everybody know that those numbers are closing and they continue to hold steady or increase.
I didn't have the time to do the calculations I've done in the last few meetings with what the percentage increases were, but I think utility taxes are certainly up, which was a little bit surprising. I think every month. Gasoline taxes are up if you look at the first half of the year versus the second half of the year. For the months that we have for the second half of the year, looks like we're seeing increases almost everywhere, almost every month. Motor fuel tax is up, state income tax is up. And obviously sales tax. And the home rule sales tax is new, so there's nothing really to compare it to.
But I think it's pretty close to our projection.
It is very close to
Our projection, do you agree, Dan?
Oh, gas tax?
No, home rule sales tax.
Oh, home rule sales tax.
It's pretty close to our projection.
You figured something close to 800 probably, I think, for the year.
gonna take us a full year to see how close we are.
Yeah, that's pretty close, I guess.
Annualized, it's about 850,000. Based on
Might be
what's
over,
here.
so we might be over projection.
But again, it's without a whole year. Okay. Then I know a question, one of the questions I think we have been asked at the, in the board meeting around revenues recently are the water run revenue. I think last week or the week before, a resident had a question, I estimated it was $1.6 million, and it's $1.428 million. That's what's here.
420.
On the second page in the capital improvement bond book, $1.428 million. On the March review.
And you thought it was,
I think I estimated, I think what I told the resident who asked was $1.6 million.
well,
It actually is $1.4 million.
Yeah, $1.4 million.
well, you know what, I had sent, no, well, I sent Ryan an email asking him where were the, and I actually have this on the agenda for tonight. I had asked him for the payments that were made from the $100,000 grant that I don't believe we still have the money from Will Davis. I couldn't find those checks on the board bills, and he told me they were paid out of the capital improvement bond fund. Those total about $95,000. I have that list at home, I can bring it tonight, so that would have to be added in there, because that would have to be reimbursed, correct?
Yeah.
If it came out of there, it's got to go back in there. So that's about another 100,000. So you were pretty close. I'll bring that in.
Questions, comments on the treasurer's report?
So, okay, so I missed over the water. What water part are you telling us is 1 point? That's our purchases? That's our balance?
The 1.4?
Yeah.
Estimate? I was just looking at the capital improvement bond book.
What the
Oh,
balance
total.
was in the bond.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
What's there is 1.428.
Okay. Excuse me, towards the end of this water tower.
Well, actually, some of that's allocated to street, if you look at it. There's 190,000 that's allocated to street. I don't know why it's still in there. Do we owe, we'd have to find out, do we owe anything yet for the street projects that we haven't paid? Joe, do you know, or have
I don't
we?
think so.
You think we paid everything on streets?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. We still got that section of water main up there in Cicero, and the water tower is all I know that's left.
So we've got to find out why we have $190,000 left in the street bond fund. Right?
Is that a separate?
Street and water were two separate bonds.
Well,
No, it was-
I don't know anything about the street.
It was one.
It was one
One
bond, I
bond,
think
but we had it allocated.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so how did they do it here? Okay, we had one bond, we had allocated so much for
For
streets,
water,
so much for water.
Yeah.
right.
So why,
I
how
think we
did
just
they,
took a percentage.
How do they separate it here?
I don't know, it was 8.5 million total,
right,
right?
how did they ever do that? According to the budget, apparently. Money market general, for capital improvements. Bond fund. So there's two different things in here. You're talking one about the infrastructure fee, the other one is the 3.5 million. Is that right?
I think that's what's left of the, that's what the general line is.
Yeah, so actually what you have in here theoretically is about 1.16 million or something like that for water, is that right?
Based on these line items, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I don't know how they came
I don't know how
about.
we split out the water in the street.
No, I have no
when we
idea.
started doing
I
that.
think that's somehow a guess. We have to see.
We have to probably go have those looked at.
Yeah. I'm guessing they should be combined. But in other words, we should have about, well, who knows? We have, theoretically, the best we have is about $1.6 million. $1.15 million for the
Capital improvement.
capital improvement bond for the water tower. Because if you subtract the 2.6, that's probably from the 3.5 million that you're talking about is got to be reimbursed, right? This thing's got to be reimbursed here, is that what you're saying? From the grant?
Well, we don't know until it's approved.
I don't know which one it came from.
Okay.
All he told me
It
was
should
when
be-
I
should be
questioned
here.
it, he told me
CMB
it
money
came from
market
the
general.
capital
Yeah.
improvement bond fund.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Any other questions on the treasurer's report? If not, we'll go to cash collection. Which has been updated,
And then Don gave us some additional information, right?
I gave you what I thought the cash projections would look like basically on Ryan's figures for revenue and expenses, and try to plug those numbers into the cash projection to make it a little more real.
Yes.
Mine is the one that says guess. So you can readily identify those. But if you looked at the differences in the cash projection, I changed a couple things. One is we put the ambulance services in, and I put in 21,000 because we're not quite making the 30,000 a month figure quite yet. The state income tax is $100,000 a month that we are receiving right now, but I think under Mr. Rauner, that's pretty likely to decrease, and I put 20% less in there. The big item that is changed is the other revenue. The revenue items, in other words, that aren't in these four categories per month are roughly about $589,000 as opposed to $325,000.
Does that include water?
That includes water, includes
Okay.
everything, because there's no way of really breaking that out.
Okay, because water is going to distort this.
Absolutely.
right. We have to include it because the costs are on the bottom.
Right.
Well, it's right, but without the locust, there's no real way of pulling it out. I mean, I tried, there's no way of doing it. I can't, I guessed, but I couldn't do it last night. On the expenditure side, I did increase, the payroll to 200,000 because of the potential payroll increases, and I think I might have even been a little light on that. I think it might be somewhere around 202, 203. IMRF looks high, but I did, that's what Ryan put down, so I put that in there, but that's very high compared to historical. Health insurance, I think according to Ryan's figures, looks like that's what it is. Mid-mark, I put a little less down than Ryan. I don't know, we have to see what the figures come through. 114,000 a month, I guess was average. Blue Island is 25,000 a month, and other expenditures actually are a little higher, 404,000 compared to 370,000. So it does change the cash projection. If you look at guess one and guess two, this is basically based on what Ryan had given us, and I just adjusted some of the figures, without knowing for sure exactly what's going on, but I did my best work based on the historical things that were given to us and to the year-to-date things that were given to us. So basically, you know, some of these things were adjusted a little bit. And some of them were taken out. For example, gas tax is an escrow item, so we took it out of there. So that isn't anywhere. Sales tax, Mayor, you know, it looks like, and you can tell me if I'm right, but it looks like we basically escrowed everything to pay the bond fund. I mean, because it looks like between the sales tax, the infrastructure, the gas, and the gas tax, it pretty much equals out to what the payables is for the bond. Was that the intention?
Correct.
Okay, so basically we're just, so there is no extra.
We're trying to make sure the bond payments are.
Okay, all right, okay, so that's what I guessed, and basically there is no extra bond payments that are due beyond that. Everything is covered. And actually, I think we were a little, in these projections here, I think we were a little maybe light on the infrastructure fee based on what I saw from Alan's figures. We're maybe $10,000 or so, a little bit light, but that's neither here nor there. And we actually levied $283,000 from the 2013 bond, and that's not even included in here. So actually, we're over subsidizing the bond right now, you know, by $283,000. So
After the bond that is deemed to be paid by sales tax, anything that's above
Right,
that
yeah.
can be used
Right.
for
right,
operating expenses.
Right.
And
it's just who goes in who pocket.
Correct.
The thing we have to be careful is we also, when we did that, we also abated some other expenses.
Right.
Yeah, fund
If next year, if we do that, we might want to just redo that so we don't abate those other expenses and
We'll leave it with the bonds.
Right. But this is, you know, sort of a new thing. This whole thing came up the last minute. We were trying to do the best we could. So that's the only thing, you know, I was trying to recalculate based a lot on what Ryan gave it the tools to do, because I think he gave us a lot of tools, but it isn't quite done yet, so I was trying to guess a little more. If we looked at this, there is a difference between revenue and expenses that's on the positive side by $700,000-$800,000.
But does that include water?
Includes water, but
Okay.
water historically, I don't know what water does or what water doesn't. I looked at 2013, water made us $735,000. And since then, the water rates have gone up, and that gives us more profit, more gross profit is from the retail trend. And so basically, my guess is that we're probably making anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000 per year at least in water. So the point of this whole thing is, yes, we have a positive balance, it's all from water.
And we can't use it.
And we can't use it to pay
Bills.
general bills.
Right. So these figures are pretty much, they look better than they actually are because we haven't been able to break the water out, and water is an enterprise fund and we're restricted.
Right.
On guess two expenses, you have 911 annual contract, 300,000. And farther down, you have dispatch services, 300,000. Same thing, right? Your guess two
Here.
Um,
expenses?
Yes, too, that could be whatever's sleeping.
Here.
300,000 annual, oh, I do, I have a double there, so actually, we're a little bit better off than what we thought. Thank you. So we're 300,000 more to the plus, but that is, even so, I mean, you're not a whole lot of extra dollars there to play around with at any point in any form or fashion, you know, because it's probably, water and sewer is probably giving us the surplus in some respects. We won't know that until we have the line item locuses to allocate the payroll to. And this is a work in progress also. I wouldn't want anybody to say this is set in stone. Maybe when we look at it in a day or two, we'll say, hey, dummy, like, why did you put the same item in two columns like I just did? Okay, so I mean, there might be other issues, mistakes there, but I think it gives us a fairly decent picture of it without being exact.
I want to jump in here and just say to both you, Don, and Alan, thank you, because we weren't getting the reports that we needed in the format that we needed, and you two have spent an incredible amount of time over the last 2 or 3 days trying to make this in a usable format. I'm hoping from our finance director we can get more current usable information, but I did want to go on record and just thank you two for the amount of work that you have done. Because it's been a lot, and I know I've gotten a lot of emails from both of you asking for input. So it's been, again, a work in progress, but a tremendous amount of work that both of you have done.
So the picture was better than we've seen in a while.
Yeah, but, right, but we're cautious
We
because
still
of
have
the
to be
water.
cautious.
We have to be very cautious.
Well, if this is all right,
If
you
it's-
know, I mean, this, you know, I don't know how some of these figures were derived, I just did historically things, you know, there's a vast decrease in 911, for example. 3 years ago, it was 131,000, now it's 67,000. On the other hand, they looked at cable license, franchise fee, and it's about double, which means that probably pretty much people are going to AT&T, U-verse, and Comcast and using VoIP phones, which isn't a landline. So I think that probably makes perfect sense.
I guess too, the other thing we should keep in mind, although we've been keeping a close eye on the cash balance, we're also conscious of the fact that we still owe 2 months worth of water bills fairly regularly, which is $250,000, and we're still paying down what we owe
Blue
Blue
Island.
Island for
That's
previous
right.
time.
The 25,000 will go
Yeah.
till for a long time, right here. Forever?
Right, so if you factor those in,
Yeah, that's $400,000 right there of, you would say outstanding bills that we're just
Mm-hmm.
paying way on.
We'd like to get my water.
Yeah,
Hey, Alan, can I say something?
sure.
With our department, you know, I really haven't done too much with the budget yet. I see it, I see what Rick had in place, and I know that a lot of our payroll was broken up into streets, water, sewer. Now, when you're saying there's a surplus in water, but you can't use it. you know,
no, we're talking about water, the money that we collect for the sale of water.
Right,
It's an enterprise fund.
right.
So it can only be used, it's very specific. We can allocate some of that to salaries and water, but it's very
Well, that's
specific.
what my question was rather than pay 5 guys out of the sewer department funds, or the street funds, we pay it out of the water.
So
That would take away,
Yeah.
then it would open up money in the general fund.
there's the last time I did a budget with Rick for Public Works 3-4 years ago. He had very specific, very good records actually about how salaries were divided between the two groups.
Right.
And one of the things that we did last spring when we were looking at the water rates, because we knew an increase was coming, the drain on the general fund for things like very deep water break repairs, if we had to go outside contractors, or even the number of breaks or overtime we had related to breaks before we got to do a lot of the infrastructure projects, it was exceeding what we were collecting in water and sewer funds to fix it. So it was draining the general fund. So that was part of what we changed in the water rate structure last year. When we changed it, we factored in those other costs that we were paying. So 2 things have happened. Our water cost has gone down because of having a better system, right? Less leaks, we're being more efficient about it. And then we're collecting more to cover the cost of the repairs of the system. So hopefully we're at a better balance. But when we do get to do the actual line item budgets this year, somewhere I'm sure we still have how those costs are divided, but I remember the line item budgets for water and sewer. There were more pages for Public Works than any other department because of different staff positions in there. So we'll resurrect some things to help do that. There's actually line items in the reports, in the department reports for different positions. It's not by person, but
Right.
But
you can
street
see
water
how it was
and sewer.
allocated.
Water and sewer, where the restricted funds, and the other guy, streets is.
Anything else? Any cash protection? So Don, thanks for putting this
Staying
in.
up all night.
Just for my own notes, so I have this correct, the big thing that changed in the other revenues, we said was water billing, because we put that back in. And also, we're seeing higher taxes than we expected, than what we were using before, right? So the 589 number that you have,
You know what, actually, it's just a product of using the revenue and expenses and just running the numbers. I don't know what changed. I just used the numbers that Ryan
based on the.
had given us from the February 15th readout and just tried to, and just basically copied and pasted most of it and then looked at some items that I thought should be adjusted. And I didn't include payroll per person because I didn't know, there wasn't much data there for the current payroll, so I just basically plugged in what we were doing per month as far as paying 195 or 192 or whatever we're doing. So I just took a gross figure rather than trying to allocate it to someone.
Probably a good segue to the next topic, which was the year-to-date actuals. I gave the copy of these, I didn't bring magnifying glasses for everybody. I did not have a lot of time to go through this study since they came yesterday. I don't know, Don, you may have used some of these for what we put together.
Well, that's right, because that's what
With the
this
business of
is.
these.
This is what yearly is as opposed to what this is monthly. So I didn't look at these, but I did look at, they basically, it's the same thing we're using. This is exactly what we're using on these figures.
But, I didn't have a lot of time because I got sidetracked on a couple
Yes.
of great things.
Yeah, you did.
But I know that I'm not real confident in some of these, because if you look, we have village administrator, and there's a charge under December for wage for a village administrator. So, I wish I would've had more time to go through here and see
Well,
if there were some
remember,
other
these
exceptions.
numbers we used, we didn't use any salary figures at all.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, there hasn't been a lot of reports because of what
Yeah,
Ryan
but
told us
there
last.
shouldn't be anything in there.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm just saying what Ryan has told us last time, unless he had the Paylocity report totally up to snuff, we couldn't allocate it to anything. So that's pretty much what that reflects. There isn't a whole lot here on anybody. The last time you can almost look at expenses is 2013. And for payroll. So yes, and I'm sure Brian, when he looks at the Paylocity report, would be the first one to say that if he gets all the departments allocated right.
I was actually just looking for a few line items. I know there were some missing dollars on previous reports that I was working to get fixed with Paylocity, but
Yes.
some of the lines that I remembered from last time I'm not even seeing, so.
Yeah, and the payroll report he gave us is pretty specific per person, so I think, all that is, it might not have been transferred into this report, but you certainly did have the other report that you knew what each employee was doing and making and so on and so forth. It just didn't make it, that was after the February 15th. Two of the things that struck me right off the bat were, IMRF, and there wasn't a line item actually in here for Social Security, so I added it, but both those figures look pretty high. So I guess if there was anything, smoking gun that stuck out. And the other thing is that I did not increase, but probably I could have. I do believe the risk insurance will increase substantially next year because of our claims experience and our, basically some of the other things that we put on insurance. So I think that will be very substantial based on past history.
I agree, we were lucky to see reductions in the last few years, but
And that's another
this year we
good
can
point.
count on it going up.
Even health insurance will probably increase, and none of that's been factored into this.
I didn't,
right?
I
We
did,
didn't
I increased some,
factor-
I increased a few other things, a little, not much. But no, health insurance was not in there, and risk insurance was not in there. Pension is in here, pension's another uncontrollable. This year we're pretty good. Who knows what tomorrow will bring.
Questions on financials?
What is lockout fees?
I think,
People lock their keys in the car.
no, I think
It's not
that's
what's
the
in
toll
bill.
fees.
That's the enhanced toll fee.
I think that's the enhanced, and that's never been
Well, I've never
changed.
matched up.
No, so if you look, it's a big
It's a lot of
number.
numbers.
That's why I think it's the toll fees,
Those are
yeah,
the enhanced toll fees.
yeah.
Because there isn't an item really in here, anything for
No.
toll, is there? No. It's always been lockout fees.
Yeah, I took down a few of the lines, and I knew 4 of them off the top of my head, that didn't have salaries in here that should have. But I didn't even see the lines in the report anymore, so I'll follow up with Ryan about those.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting they're not in here, I'm just maybe they got fixed and collapsed in with some other
Which is
ones.
good. Maybe we can go on to locust too.
Yep. Okay. So Don, you did this with the eye of, with the plan of budget, right? Your two.
I was trying to figure out if we had money because we're being asked to consider pay
Pay
raises.
increases.
I mean, pay raises are going to happen in fire and police, and we're also asking for some departmental special increases, and also we're going to have to decide if other employees are going to get pay increases too. That was the purpose of this, to see if we had money to do this.
As it relates to the next agenda item was the department budgets, and we won't have anything for Ryan for that, on that until next week. I know trustee Price gave him a report from, Locust
Right, sample from prior
to
years.
get out, and it sounds like there's something with 2014 still being open, and he said he's not able to run them, so.
Although Denise always ran these. When did she do this?
I don't know, she ran a pretty current thing too. So
Yeah,
maybe
you know,
it's the same thing. It's,
But
you
here,
know,
here it is, general ledger budget worksheet, and I gave him this probably 3 weeks ago. She ran it on, this was from 2012, April 24th. So
But what-
everything was still open,
Yeah, but was it 13 months behind?
probably not.
You know,
but-
that's, she was,
Yeah,
you know, they probably want to close up 1 year and then reopen it, so I mean, I understand. But, you know, basically what Locust could give us is what was it last year, what is happening
Right.
this year, and then what is the
Right.
budget. And I think the big problem with Locust right at that point was that the payroll figures can be matched up into any line items because of the velocity problems.
but that's what the departments need.
The departments need,
Need it.
because right now, even with this, a lot of it, I don't understand the departments do.
That's the departments need it by line items.
They need it by line item.
They need it by line
So-
item,
Right.
and with past history.
Yes.
So that's definitely, we may just need a meeting dedicated to the budget for
Absolutely.
our next one, so
Absolutely, line item, they,
we'll work to get those. In the meantime, we have a high-level view, something we can consider.
Yeah.
Just FYI with regards to, again, Harris is coming out on the 28th to do a demo at 9 o'clock in the morning, so if anybody wants to see it now.
The 28th?
Yeah, Blue Island just installed them 6 months ago.
you know, it would be, I think it would be good if, just speaking from my standpoint, I don't know if you can speak here, Yellow, but, you know, since you're the head of administration, chair of the finance committee, if they can make an appointment where you'd be available, I think that'd be good, you know, because I think we want somebody who knows something, Alan, and you too, Mike, I think, you know, your input is just, how easy is it to work? Is it do what you want to? And I think I would want to see if Alan could, definitely by the demo, if
Try
Alan
to
could be
make it.
available. So I don't know if Harris works later in the day.
Well, the one I looked at before, their quote came back at $150,000 to install.
Okay. Does that count with a 50-year lease? No?
So,
Fine.
but that's why I'm gonna take a look at Harris too.
Okay.
in the meantime, I mean, we have to have everything in and recorded, reconciled before we migrate to another system.
Oh, yeah.
And we can figure out how to pay for it. Okay.
So
So,
we charge it to the water bill?
well, if it has a utility billing component in it,
It's got a
it's
good
good. Some of it, yeah. Okay, so more to come on budgets, as I said, I think we'll have to have another meeting just for that. And we'll work out the kinks with getting reports for the department heads, so that give some insight into the budgets. Water receivables, I'm gonna pass around, this was just on the desk when I got here today. I did not have a chance to print out the spreadsheet that has the blocks with the number of sections and shut-offs, et cetera, so I'll have to share that with everybody after the meeting. But this is the summary page that's in the workbook I sent out before. Keeping in mind, of course, we have bills that go out every month, so I think we were at a point in time at this meeting in March where I think we had around $308,000 total past due receivables. That number's down to 294. And then of that number, there's current bills that are due. There's an additional $178,000 of current bills that will be due on the 21st of this month. I know this doesn't, again, this doesn't have the details of the sections, but it's got the totals in here.
So it does have a percentage of past due? Because last time we talked, the last meeting was 38%. Now, I think it's gone down substantially.
No,
It's higher.
No, but you.
No.
You have to add the current, the
Right.
total past due and the current.
Right.
One second, Don.
And then the,
That math wouldn't work here. Because the past due and the current columns actually equal the total. Which would say that 62% are past due. I find that hard to believe.
so what you added up was all three columns and divided out the 294?
No, the total past due and current bills equal what's in the first column.
Oh,
It's just taking the first column and spreading the two out.
okay.
I think we need a color block sheet that
I
says,
think something happened.
yeah.
What was the date of this? Just today?
415.
We need to double check that. I would expect it to be now.
You know, if you look at the total past due, that really hasn't moved,
No.
right?
94 hasn't moved from the prior one?
No, look at, if you look at, here's, I pulled last month's.
Oh, no, it hasn't gone down.
The total past due that we got in
But this
March,
is radically different here.
but it's current.
Yeah, so look at this. So there's gotta be a timing issue.
Well, but maybe, because, yeah, maybe it is.
Are you looking at the
Catch
March
what
one?
timing.
Yeah,
Look at
here.
what- take the plan.
I have the March. So I'm
It's
saying,
quite a bit different.
that's quite a bit different. But could it have something to do with the current? Because look at the current. Here's current here. And I'm just wondering, does it have to do with, this was run the beginning of March, this was run the
This is
middle of
closer to the due
April.
date, right.
This is closer to the due date, so more payments were probably made,
Mhm.
right? But this hasn't really moved, right?
Still around $295,000.
For
Past
past
dues.
dues, which I thought we were doing better with the shut-offs and the collections. Do you know, Joe, about the, I mean, probably not the collections, but the shut-offs, because it really, the dollar amount hasn't moved.
Yeah, I can't speak on what's going on in the office. You know, they have a lot more to do that I don't know about, but I know what we've shut off.
Okay.
Has it been substantial or?
It was, a couple weeks ago it was, and then it's been, I think, a lull since.
You should have had about 3 batches, right, in a row, maybe over a
To
week
be
and a
honest
half,
with
2
you,
weeks.
Alan, I don't know, it goes directly to Tim, and he deals with it, but I could find out.
Well, those numbers are on that summary page, color blocks too.
Oh, I've got last month's, but I don't yet, but it hasn't been updated for
Hopefully you get the,
this. Is this, are you looking for this?
This is what I was looking for.
Okay, but then,
Because this has the number of penalty bills and the number of shut-offs.
but we don't have that for this month now.
Correct. Right. And it may be in the email I got. This literally came with those runoff doors, but I don't know.
Okay, but the shut-offs, we've got to make sure those continue because it just doesn't look good.
And I've told Maureen that we would put extra guys on it.
Yeah, just to
But
get
there's
the-
more for her to do, I don't know her end of it.
Right.
But she said it's kind of hard logistically because she's got to get letters out, do this, do that. So we have to speak with her on why, if she can do more.
I know in this, I think it was the second week of March, Joe, I personally had 3 or 4 people call that got shut off the same day. Your folks may have still been there turning it off. And I know that at least of those 4, 3 of them made arrangements to pay within the hour. And so you were probably back, but I know, I recall having a list that had, 30 one week, there was another 25 the next week, and another 10 or 12 coming the week after that, all lined up, going from largest balances, oldest balances to newer, so.
But it has to be consistent, it has to
Yeah.
continue, this has to be just a continuing process every week.
I'll get the rest of the information.
Yeah, we even had people that have turned themselves back on and pull their meter. And there's ways for us to check. I knew the big $4,000 bill, I knew the people were still living in there, so I actually checked on Locust or whatever to see if they were using any more. They hadn't used any, but there was 8 people living there for 10 days. We went back over there and tried to see if we could get on the shut-off. We couldn't get on. So I thought, wow, they must have turned themselves back on and put something there. We dug it up the next day. They were never on. They put a socket down in there and tried to get on it.
Try to turn
So
on.
it's a big game, but we're staying on it as much as we can. I know how important it's money.
Well, we're gonna keep the list coming, so there'll be more.
Like I said, if you can give us a bigger list, we'll get more people on it.
Don, the food and beverage tax on here, I think this was something you wanted to.
Well, we suspended looking at the food and beverage tax so we didn't know if we needed it. We were hoping that the referendums were going to pass, will work out. And we may need it, but the mayor's getting hopefully a report from the Department of Revenues detailing each business, right, Mayor, how much sales tax they pay.
Correct.
So I don't think we're in an emergency situation. I think hopefully we'll see that in May because they paid their taxes at April 20th for March. So probably we'll see it in May and we can make a decision, hopefully get a little better idea how much the food and beverage tax would get us. Because right now we use a dartboard. We didn't have any idea. So I don't think we should pass a tax we don't know
If we need it.
needed
We need it.
and how much money it's going to us.
So that's on hold till we have better information.
Or the report.
According to the state, we would get it sometime in May, early June at the latest, is what they said.
If I could just jump back to the treasurer's report, we should still probably get some more property tax money for April, correct? Or do we think we've got, I'm wondering if we know, if we've got now, what else we might have gotten in since
Instead of
April
the,
Could have
1st.
gotten some in April, maybe?
Yeah, what?
Instead of the 50,000?
Mm-hmm. Because look at last year. And what we got in April.
Yeah, but did it go out earlier last year?
No, look at the numbers. They're pretty consistent.
Okay.
Okay, see what I'm looking at? When you look historical,
Mhm.
I'm wondering what we have
Oh,
gotten
we
in
have coming up,
April.
yeah, which we don't know.
Which we don't know.
just using, on this, he's just using Joe's historical
Right. but
projection figures, he
There's
hasn't
probably
changed it.
something in there, though, that could tell us what we've gotten through today
Yeah,
for property
and how
tax
much,
revenue.
and how much is expected.
Mhm. Maybe you could, send an email and find out what we've gotten today for property tax. That would be really helpful.
In April, we're talking.
In April, correct. Because last year we got almost 800,000.
Next item on the agenda, the no solicitor's detail estimate. I included that in the package that went out. Nicole, I think, reached out to some vendors. This relates to the no solicitors stickers, I believe, which come in the packets for new residents. And like she did with the other gaming machine licenses and business licenses, she shopped around for some better prices. So she sent me this proposal for 500 stickers. The price is $350, $750 for 1,000, or $435. I think this is more of a, I mean, from a numbers and cents standpoint, she didn't put in here what we're saving. It's probably been a while since we've ordered them.
I think she said 2007 or 2008.
Since we ordered. Yeah, so I mean, this is not something we order very frequently. I'm sure the cost is lower, as have been the other ones. But she actually said the vendor told her, you realize, you can buy these for less than $4 or $5 at a hardware store. So I think this is more a question of, not is it a good deal, but is this something we want to keep buying and providing residents?
It should be cut.
I
Take
would
them out of the
agree.
package.
Mhm. We have other,
Thoughts?
I think, expenses that are more of a priority.
Fine with me.
Okay.
Also in the package is some information from the mayor regarding the building superintendent position. The mayor, I think you wanted the finance committee to consider this and
Right, I
provide
didn't
some.
know what else you wanted to add to it, and
This is, well, if the whole board is here, but I think this is probably something that should be discussed at a committee meeting. Or we could discuss it because the whole board is here, but I didn't.
What is the role of the finance committee in approving, I mean, we do approve pay increases if they're authorized, or not, right? We look at them before they're,
The board has to approve any pay increase.
well, I know, but the finance committee is also supposed to double check that, right?
Well,
To make sure.
everything with the compensation policy, everything has to come through the finance committee, and a recommendation from the finance committee goes to the full village board. Okay?
Okay, so, but we don't do anything as far as, the only reason I think it could come to the finance committee would be, okay, how much money do you think we should spend on this position?
that's the other thing.
Yeah, and I think we need to look at other towns that are more in a financial position we are. I don't think Oak Forest is a little different than we are. I think they have more money. I mean, not a ton more, because they had to do a home rule sales tax too. But I think, from this standpoint, when we looked at the job description, at the qualifications that you found, it didn't look like there was a whole lot of things about certifications in there. It looked like it was just, here's what your experience was and sort of what we do now. So, I mean, to match up the job descriptions, to match up the qualifications, and then put a figure on it, if that's what you expect the finance committee to do, I think that's appropriate. To try to see, what salary ranges are you in, depending upon if that's what you want us to do.
We have to probably look at some other towns and find out what kind of degrees they have, and we've talked about that.
Qualifications, job
Qualifications.
description, and how much they're paying.
So we can probably reach out to other communities. and
There,
try-
I'm thinking more of the Hazel Crest or the Woods or things like that.
Maybe even Ulster.
Also, it's a little higher in
Okay.
the
So you're,
Chicago Ridge, right? Some that are.
We can do that fairly quickly, though.
Yeah.
We can.
So I don't think, we could probably talk about this at the meeting tonight. but this should not stop us from
doing our.
wrapping up a job description and starting to see candidates.
Well, the problem is when the finance committee gets the number. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yes,
okay.
I did.
Well, we've
Is
got
that
to-
at a meeting or is that gonna be?
Well, we're probably gonna have another meeting, but we can start doing the research.
Right.
Well, I think we want.
We don't have to advertise it with the salary, it might, we can start seeing.
I don't know, did the Old Forest advertise the salary?
Yes,
Yeah.
We did.
When they posted it?
yeah.
Well, they had a range.
We have range depending on
I
qualifications.
think it's good practice, just because if you want better people, then, you know, and you're willing to pay them, why not advertise it? You might get better applicants, you know? So, I mean, maybe could we give that job to one person and set it up for the meeting? Rather than the finance committee having to do it? Can we just say, okay, here, do the research, and at the meeting, we'll look at it and see what we want to, what the board wants to do as far as the range?
Hit a
Rather
regular
than
meeting
waiting
or
for the
something?
finance committee to do it. Because we want to get this done fairly quickly, is that right here?
That's the urgency I was feeling from you guys, yeah.
Okay. I mean, what do you want to do? You want to wait for another meeting, or you want to try to?
No, I agree, I don't know that we necessarily,
We can start doing
communicate
research and we
over
can bring it up at a
email.
committee meeting, right? As soon as we have information.
We probably need to decide amongst ourselves who's gonna do what, and how we're gonna collect the information.
It's going to be the same person who wants to do it. Because, I mean, when you're talking to a village, you're asking for, you know.
I'll do it,
Got
Is
it.
there anybody on staff that can do it?
maybe Nicole,
Maybe Nicole.
maybe Nicole.
Would that be okay? Is that, that's okay?
So we can use some guidelines, questions.
Right, we're gonna have to give her
answer,
some, right.
Right.
sample job descriptions, and we'll give some guidance as to what communities to reach out to.
Not to be off topic too, but if we could give Nicole the job of trying to find real job descriptions. There were a bunch, I mean, we had one for every position that was done, and some have changed, but I think some have stayed the same. If you could find the old ones, we could not have to reinvent the wheel.
I think I had some sent to her last week.
Did you?
Some of the old ones, yeah.
Okay.
But I will confirm. So we'll move forward with that, and then hopefully by our next committee meeting, we can have something. Another item the mayor proposed for the agenda was the suggestion that we put out a request for proposal for auditing services. You provided a sample, I think, of a.
Right, that's what I was provided when I asked, when you're looking for an auditor, what do you use? This is what it was given to me, and I didn't know if this is the format you wanted to put out. Like I said, I'm currently not happy with our current auditor at all.
What is the problem? Just so you- I mean, if we don't have an audit, other than that, I mean. yeah.
Other than that, we don't have an audit.
And the audit is taking how
And
long?
every time I talk to them,
Yeah.
it's being pushed out, pushed out, pushed out. Now they're talking May.
Because now
I
they're
was
in the middle
promised
of audit.
February, I was promised
Right,
March, I was
right,
promised
right.
April, now I'm being promised May.
Now they're telling us because they're in the middle of other audits, they can't
Correct.
touch us.
Right, and I can't see us going forward. Not, I feel we pay our auditor quite well, and I feel that we are treated like the redheaded stepchild at times.
For 2 years.
You know, we're being ignored because they've got other clients they'd rather work with.
Mhm.
And it's just my recommendation, at least look, even if we don't change, at least we'll have prices and the qualifications of other people.
We've had them for quite a few years without going outside for a RFP for this work. So
Right.
I think they're probably complacent right now, thinking that we would change.
I don't want to talk about Java, but when we went out to search for an auditor, apparently there's some sort of rating for auditors that they're like reviewed like Yelp or something. I mean, because that's what it came up with, maybe it's language, but, you know, that would never happen. But, you know, he said this auditor is rated this, and this, and, you know, I don't know if there is ratings for auditors as far as, you know, rates and ease of customer contact or whatever, but, you know, it seems like qualifications for technical is not the real issue, it's like what customer service is the issue. Anybody can get 2 plus 2.
And some of it can be the team that you're assigned to from the firm as well. I mean, I'm sure Midlothian, like other companies, has people that do municipal work versus the audits they do with private sector clients. But
I think Midlothian is too big. I think Midlothian does too many things at one time with the million public entity things, and I think we get stuck in the middle there if our audit is a little late. We did hire some accounting firms for South Suburban Land Bank, and I think we found some that could be good auditors too. You know, there are medium-sized companies that seem like they're good with customer service. They're not like Midlothian where it's so large and just, oh, we don't care. We lose you, well, who cares? You know, we don't want that. We want somebody that really is, you know, for the land bank, they usually have 3 or 4 people show up to the meetings to give us a financial report. That shows to me that they want us rather than, you know, who's the work person of the day, you know?
And maybe as we approach this, what we should do is everybody's audits are online. So we can go look at Oak Forest and Tinley Park and Orland and Park Forest and let's see who they're using, because I think a lot of them are using other firms than Midlothian. And many of these municipalities get this, what's the award they get, Alan, for their financial reporting? I'm not suggesting we're
I wish I could
anywhere
think
near
of
that.
that. Or
You know
Park
what I-
just wanted to get this year.
And Park Forest has
Yeah,
won
Park
it, I'm
Forest
not
has won it.
suggesting we're anywhere near that, but the audits are online, so I think we can start looking at
The
who some
auditors,
of these,
yeah.
who some of these other firms
You get
are.
references?
Mm-hmm.
With just the fact that we uncovered some issues in-house that they didn't share with us, makes me feel that they're just playing a catch. That's just my opinion.
Well, I think the key things, we asked the auditor, what, about 8 months ago, what happened to the money for the water tower? And the answer was, I don't know. Then the mayor looks at some things and she found out what happened to some of the money from the water tower. Now, don't you think that
It would have been in a
the
mail.
auditors would have
Yeah.
maybe uncovered some things? Why do we got so many checks from a water fund that isn't going to where it's supposed to be?
Only come
It's
for
not
2
like
weeks.
we're paying for a review, we're paying for an audit. And
Big time money too.
when you pay for an audit, they have to dig into and do their due diligence on what happened, you know?
Well, they don't check everything, but they sample each account. Now, there wasn't that many checks written from that fund when you were looking, and all of them, I would raise questions, and I think Mayor, you were,
It was a no-brainer.
you know, very accurate, very nice to tell us that, but I mean, the auditor should have been telling us that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this our last year? We have a 3-year?
I
It is.
think it
It
is,
is.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think actually last year, what our last year, we just kept them on, didn't we? Because it was such a
Because we were so late
mess.
in starting
It was such a
again.
mess.
Right.
so you'd like to have an RFP up for the.
So I
next
think
meeting?
let's try to see, you know what, I'll take on the task of identifying what other municipalities there are, and I'll compile a list, okay?
Mayor, is this just a standard form you got somewhere?
Yes.
Did we, okay.
Yeah, we can change it however we want to reflect whatever you want.
I never actually looked at one for audit before, it was much longer than I expected.
It was a lot longer. I just figured, hi, Midlothian's looking for an auditor, please submit.
Exactly, that's kind of what I was,
That's what I thought it would be, Ellen, and like I said, that's quite detailed. But I know I've had a couple of firms contact me asking if we're going out for bid. And I said that we were getting ready to put something together, and yes, we would. And they were like, most of them wanted copies of our previous audit. So I guess basically to see what we're used to seeing, I don't
They
know.
could just go online.
Right, and that's what I told them, our audit is online, so
Karen, if you do some of that research, I'll look for some,
I can give you the
More condensed.
recommendation, or the requests, yeah, to be added to the
List.
list.
the list.
I'll just start compiling, I'm just gonna start going and looking at neighboring municipalities and see who they, okay, so I'll start that task, okay?
Okay, thank you. All right, Class 8 extension request for 14441 South Cicero. I understand, I know Mayor, this came from you also,
Mhm.
and I understand, Don, I think you also have a big.
Yeah, so I guess you summed it up pretty well, is, we had thought there should be improvements to the property, the tenants don't want any improvements to the property. We were thinking of windows, because they want storage space, they
Right.
want shelving space.
Correct.
So there is no improvements to the property at all. I think his argument is that twofold. One is that according to him, that the two tenants pay $50,000 worth of tax per year. Is that verifiable?
I printed it out.
They pay,
Now I don't know. I'm looking at their tax history. This is from the Cook County Tax Portal. In 2010, they paid $38,890. In 2011, $45,231. In 2012, $48,080. 2013, $50,040. And then again, the first installment this year is 55%
Okay,
of
all right.
last year.
so their argument was, as I remember, was that the total tax bill for the two is $50,000, which that shows. Their tax bill will double. So in other words, instead of each tenant paying $25,000, they will be paying $50,000. One of the tenants is not doing super well, and the message from the manager, the owner, I guess is the owner, right? One message from the owner was, if you want to double their rent, you may have people leave. What we're getting out of it right now is $5,000, roughly 10% of the property tax bill, $5,000. And we are getting, according to unverified sources, is that the two combined sell about $2.5 million worth of sales a year. And that basically at a 2% rate is, we would be getting $50,000 of sales tax. So basically his argument was, well, keep the sales tax low and you'll get $50,000 sales tax. If you raise it, you won't be getting that much extra in the property tax, and you may lose everything on the sales tax.
Since we work off a flat number now instead of a rate, we won't, if they pay more, the village isn't gonna get any more in the property tax. We're still gonna.
Yes. Oh, yeah, if the Class 8 ends, the village's share of the property taxes will double.
From them.
From them, yes.
It'll go down somewhere else though. Because we work off a flat rate of $3.5 million, and that's how we're gonna get it. We're not working on a rate anymore, so.
Well, no, but the Class A exemption is for that property only, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is.
If we drop the Class
So,
A,
for
and they pay
example,
more, someone else is gonna pay less, because
That's right.
we work off a flat rate.
that's right, we're not working on a rate anymore.
Flat
That is
number.
true. We are working on just a flat
Number.
levy. And so it's gonna be teeter-totter effect.
So losing the Class A there doesn't help us. Their property tax going up doesn't help us. Help the village financially.
Well, okay, so if we kept let's keep this in simplest terms. If we kept the Class 8, they may pass it on to a homeowner, the extra taxes. If we increase the Class 8, then other property owners, their property taxes will be less. And, okay, and they may, and that, I guess, who they pass it on to is my biggest worry. You're right, but who they pass it on to? If the whole village had Class 8, for example, the whole village had Class 8, well, who would be paying the extra taxes? It would be the homeowners. That's the biggest problem. I don't know where this money goes, and I think Karen checked a couple other towns, right?
Well,
One or two towns about what they do with Class 8s that
I
are being
checked with
renewed?
one and they're not. The other one, I haven't gotten a phone call back. I guess what bothers me is we had a request from somebody who wanted to renew it,
Mhm.
and we told the board, we denied it. We said, unless you're gonna expand or increase jobs. So I think we have to be consistent. We have to take things into consideration, but if we do it for somebody else, and that other individual comes back, they're gonna say, well, you did it for him, you didn't do it for me, now I'm gonna sue you, or,
Well, I don't think they're gonna, the question is, if we do it for one, then more people who had Class 8s, which I don't know how many people in the town had Class 8s, but more people are gonna do it, and more of the Class 8s that they're renewed are going to probably be passed on to the homeowner, the differences. On the other
There's a
hand,
reason right there, if they're not making improvements, why even consider it if it's going to impede more taxes
you
on
might lose
residents?
50,000 in sales taxes. That's the problem. I mean, I know what's right. What's right is don't do it. But on the other hand, you know, the positive now, and if he did lose a tenant, is it that he's never gonna get another one? If the one tenant is doing pretty well, the other tenant is not doing quite as well. My thought is if the one tenant does happen to move or go out of business, that the other tenant's a pretty good draw as far as business, and it's pretty likely they get another business in there, because the one tenant has a lot of traffic. Traffic is traffic.
The one that isn't doing well, I'm assuming it's because of the competition.
Absolutely. Oh, well, they weren't doing well before that, now this is gonna make it worse.
Right.
So I don't know if we're gonna save them on one way or the other.
Mhm.
So I think this is an issue that should be discussed at the board. Right? So the board is gonna, I mean, we can make a recommendation, but I think the board,
From a finance committee standpoint, it's a toss-up.
yes.
And the right thing, well, in my mind, as a board member, the right thing is also to say no, because we've already set that precedent with other people, and they're not planning to make improvements. But I also understand do we want to risk losing sales tax in favor of the property? But if the Class 8 goes away, to Gary's point,
Well,
the tax revenue is still there, it's just going to be worn, carried by
Right.
someone else.
Right. We're not, and I think the other thing, yeah, you have to talk about too is that it's a, you know, $50,000 worth of real estate, the taxes, and 5,000 goes to us. But what, you know, you're hurting schools and other entities that probably need it too. And that's, I think that's just a bad policy a lot of times. You just, well, we're the only one that count. I think when you're doing Class 8 or anything else, you have to take the whole community into account too, because I think we're not the only one that counts. I think the other entities count just as much or maybe more.
Do we know when this was first granted?
I would say
12
12
years
years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So you said 12 years of
And it
benefit
did
out
what
of
it
this.
was supposed to
And he
do.
knew when it was gonna expire, when he signed leases with these tenants.
Right.
Presuming it's like every other commercial lease, property taxes fall into operating expenses, right, which are
Sure,
true
just pass through.
every year, and they're passed through to the
Pass right
tenants.
along. I think the other thing is if we start renewing things, I think then we'll have almost every town, every business in town that starts will ask for a Class A2. I mean, this is going to be like a wildfire that's going to be kind of hard to contain. If we give Class 8s to everybody, then it's going to be Class 8s to everybody. I don't think it's going to be a good thing over the long run.
And we do have some other, I'm gonna bring it up tonight, we do have somebody who's back looking for a Class 8 again. So there are other, and there could be two potential requests for Class 8s. So, but they're hopefully gonna do improvements to their properties.
Mhm.
They're based on improvements to their properties and creating jobs. So we have to think about that. We're probably
This was
gonna
the
get.
intention of that anyway.
Correct, but we're gonna have some new property owners that are looking for Class 8s to spur economic development.
Is that still a requirement by county that improvements need to be made to qualify for?
No, it's basically,
The village says.
yeah, and basically originally was it's supposed to be, have an empty building for so many years. Then it became, well, the special Class 8s where
Right.
there's hardship. But, you know, on that case, then, like you say, Jared, it's sort of like what the village says, is a hardship. I think with our, one village we did there, I don't know which one it was. It was a hardship thing. It wasn't vacant for that long. We just,
South Holland, maybe,
yeah.
yeah.
When I looked into that a couple of years ago, when we found out that Walgreens is Class 8, they went directly to the county.
I bet most of the shopping center is.
Yeah, and they went
How-
directly to the county and got the Class 8,
Versus the village.
yeah.
How
They
they
didn't
did
come to
that
the
was.
village. Why the county board granted that
That's
without
right. How they did that was because
without
the,
a resolution from the village?
the village attorney knew nothing about it. He asked me, how come you got a Class 8? I I don't know, I mean, it's not supposed to run that way, it's supposed to be, you're supposed to have a certificate signed by the village, but I guess they knew something.
I heard it wasn't necessary. They could do it.
Oh, Walgreens? Walgreens, they Walgreens and
Yeah.
it's more money, and, oh
Yeah.
my God.
Okay, so we can touch on that tonight as an update to the board. Utility audit, I think Karen, you.
You know, I think we all probably got this in the mail.
Well,
And since we're,
let me talk about this for a second, because when I first became a trustee, they pitched me about that.
I know they did, you're probably gonna say, let's not do it.
Let's not do it, because, for two reasons. One is, it's almost the opposite problem. We're building some of Crestwood, they're not, you know, we're not really losing much as far as building. The other thing is, they're not gonna come and say, we're gonna do the work, the village has to do the work. Then when you give them all the data, then they'll find what is not being built and so on and so forth. I mean, we found that at a convention, the guy, we brought him in, we looked at it, they had the guy come in and talk to us, he said, well, that's great, you know, we'll tell you what to look for, but you guys gotta do it. We have staff to do that? Oh my gosh.
Well, you know, as we were clawing, looking for every penny, I had to at least bring it up, and I remember, that I bring it up again, and maybe it would be even worth a phone call to them, but,
If they're gonna do the work, that's great.
okay.
If they're gonna, if they say, here, let's look at the addresses and see if they all match up, and we'll do all the data work and everything, then that's great, but there's no possible way. I mean, Crestwood just had a zip code.
That would be wonderful.
Pardon me?
We can ask Nicole to call and ask those
Great.
questions.
Crestwood just did a whole zip code campaign to have another post office based on the fact that we were theoretically billing them extra for some utilities, not the opposite way around.
I take your point down, though, the danger is they may find out that we actually owe people the money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess get pulled here.
It's just moving
And there,
backwards.
and if they don't, and there is a law that came into effect restricting some of the churches to, they used to be able to look back 10 years, now they can look back, I think, 2 or 3 maybe. You know, so there's not, so, you know, I guess, how much work will be involved and what's our potential take on the darn thing, there's more trouble than it's worth.
And it may be, but I had to ask the question, okay?
Okay, our last agenda item is an executive session item to discuss salary compensation increases. Will we have anything else afterwards?
No.
Do we need a motion to go into the executive session?
Hmm?
Do we need a motion to?
You know, Mike can make motions, he's part of this fight. You know?
That was it.
Come on, Mike.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion passes. So we move into an executive session. There will be no further discussion after the executive session.